I never thought I'd be writing about something like this, but here I am. My wife and I were together for 12 years, married for the last 3 of those years. We're both 38 now. We didn't have kids, but we shared 3 cats. One of them needed special care because of a leg injury, but I never minded the extra attention she needed. Life wasn't perfect, but whose is? We had our share of arguments and disagreements over the years. I really believed we could work through anything that came our way. That's why I suggested we try marriage counseling when things started feeling a bit off between us. My wife agreed, and I thought that meant she wanted to fix things too. I put everything into those counseling sessions. Every week, I'd show up and talk openly about my feelings, my mistakes, and what I thought we could do better. But my wife? Half the time she'd just sit there, barely saying anything. The other half, she wouldn't even show up. I still remember sitting there alone with our counselor, Dr. Martinez, who kept giving me these sympathetic looks. Still, I kept going. I kept trying. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Saturday afternoon, and my wife said she was going to spend the day with her friend Sarah. I didn't think twice about it. They often hung out together. I decided to use the time to run some errands, including picking up groceries for the week. That's when everything fell apart. Right there in the produce section, between the tomatoes and cucumbers, I ran into Sarah. The same Sarah my wife was supposedly spending the day with. Sarah looked confused when I asked how their day was going, and that's when I knew something was wrong. Really wrong. I finished my shopping somehow, even though my mind was racing with questions. When I got home, I waited and waited. When my wife finally came home that evening, acting like everything was normal, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I saw Sarah at the grocery store today," I said, watching her face closely. She turned pale, and I saw her hands start to shake. At first, she tried to brush it off as a mistake in plans, but I kept pressing. Finally, she broke down and told me the truth. She'd been having an online relationship with someone for almost our entire marriage. Today was their first time meeting in person. I was crushed. Here I was, going to counseling, trying to save our marriage, while she was building a relationship with someone else. All those times she was glued to her phone or laptop suddenly made sense. I'd been so blind. Against my better judgment, when she begged for another chance, saying we were best friends and she couldn't lose me, I gave in. "We're already in counseling," she said. "I'll really try this time." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But 3 days later, I caught her texting him again. When I confronted her, she claimed they were just friends and she needed to slowly end things. That was it for me. I told her we were done. No more chances, no more lies. It was like flipping a switch. The moment I said those words, she stopped crying and begging. She just said fine and moved out to her parents' house the next day. We were renting, so at least we didn't have to deal with selling a house on top of everything else. Our cats took it hard at first. They kept looking for her, waiting by the door. I did my best to give them extra attention and keep their routine as normal as possible. Animals pick up on these things, you know? They can tell when something's wrong. After she moved out, her stuff just sat there in boxes, taking up space in my living room. Every time I looked at those boxes, I felt sick. I kept asking her to come get them, sending messages almost every day, but she always had some excuse. After 3 weeks of this back and forth, I'd had enough. I loaded everything into my car and drove to her parents' house. Her parents had always been good to me. They included me in family events, remembered my birthday, and treated me like their own son. When I showed up at their door with boxes of their daughter's things, they seemed happy to see me. That's what made what happened next even harder. "We're so sorry about the divorce," her mom said, giving me a sad smile. "Sometimes love just fades away." I stood there, confused. What exactly did she tell you about why we're getting divorced? Her mom's answer made it clear that my wife had fed them some story about us growing apart and wanting different things in life. She'd completely left out the part about cheating on me for most of our marriage. I had to tell them. They deserved to know the truth about their daughter. I told them everything: the online relationship, the lies, the failed counseling sessions. I even offered to show them proof if they didn't believe me. I had screenshots of messages I'd found, dates, times, everything. They were shocked. Her dad sat down heavily in his chair, and her mom started crying. They kept saying they couldn't believe it, that they hadn't raised her to be like this. I felt bad for them, but they needed to know. Through some mutual friends, I found out what happened next. Her parents confronted her about what I told them. At first, she tried to deny it, but when they mentioned I had proof, she finally admitted everything. That's when they did something I never expected. They told her she had 30 days to find somewhere else to live. They wouldn't let her stay with them after lying to their faces. Her mom called me a few days later to apologize. "We didn't raise her to be dishonest," she said. "We're so sorry for what she did to you." I told her they had nothing to apologize for. They weren't responsible for their adult daughter's choices. That's when my wife, well, ex-wife now, really lost it. She started sending me angry messages, calling me names, saying I'd ruined her life. She even had the nerve to ask if she could move back into our old place until she found somewhere else to stay. "I might end up homeless," she wrote. "Is that what you want?" I sent back one message. "Why don't you go stay with your online boyfriend? He seems to care so much about you." Then I blocked her number, her email, everything. I didn't want to hear from her again unless it was through our lawyers about the divorce. Healing from all this has been the hardest thing I've ever done. Some days are better than others. I have good friends and family who try to help, but unless someone's been through something like this, they can't really understand. Still, having people around who care helps. I started seeing a therapist just for myself, no more couples counseling this time. I also started taking better care of myself. Every Sunday, I go for a long walk in the park near my house. Sometimes I take a book and just sit there reading. It's peaceful. Update. It's been 6 months now since everything fell apart. I'm doing better, though I won't pretend it's been easy. The cats have adjusted to their new routine. Even the one with the bad leg seems more settled now. Sometimes I think animals understand more than we give them credit for. From what I hear through mutual friends, my ex-wife is still moving from place to place. She found an apartment, but it won't be ready for another month. Right now, she's staying on different friends' couches, trying to avoid going to a hotel because of the cost. Her parents still aren't talking to her, which honestly surprises me. I thought they'd given after a few weeks, but I guess lying to them was the final straw. She still tries to contact me sometimes. She makes new email addresses or borrows friends' phones to send messages. They start with apologies, then turn to blame, then back to begging for another chance. I delete them all without responding. The only time I'll talk to her is when it's about divorce paperwork, and even then, it's only through our lawyers. My friend Tony keeps telling me I should start dating again. He even tried to set me up with his coworker last week. I turned it down. I'm not ready for that yet, and I'm okay with it. This whole experience taught me that it's better to be alone than to be with someone who doesn't respect you. The online guy she was talking to? Turns out he was also married. His wife found out about everything and contacted me last month. We had a long talk about how it felt to be cheated on. It was actually helpful to talk to someone who understood exactly what I was going through. She's doing better now too. I've come a long way from that day in the grocery store when I ran into Sarah. Some days I still get angry when I think about all the lies and the time I wasted trying to fix something that was already broken. But those moments don't last as long as they used to. My therapist says healing isn't linear. There will be good days and bad days, and that's normal. The important thing is that the good days are starting to outnumber the bad ones. I'm focusing on things I never had time for before. I joined a local book club, started learning to cook properly, and even adopted another cat from the shelter. Last week, I ran into my ex-mother-in-law at the store. We had a nice talk. She told me they miss having me as part of their family, but understand that I need to move on. She also said they're still hoping their daughter will learn something from all this, but they're not holding their breath. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just break your trust in one person. It makes you question everything. Every relationship, every friendship, every casual conversation. You start looking for lies everywhere. But I'm learning that not everyone is like my ex-wife. Most people are honest. Most people are good. I don't know what the future holds, and for the first time in a long while, I'm okay with that. I'm taking things one day at a time. The pain isn't gone, but it's different now. It's more like an old injury that aches sometimes rather than an open wound. People keep asking me if I regret telling her parents the truth. I don't. Lies have a way of growing bigger and bigger until they destroy everything around them. I'm done with lies. From now on, I'm choosing honesty, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. The online guy can have her. He probably thinks he wants something great, but all he got was someone who doesn't understand what love and loyalty mean. Meanwhile, I'm rebuilding my life, one day at a time. It's not perfect, but it's real. And real is all I want now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.